so much pressure now on Bohs as well, because obviously with the Europe and the way their season kind of petered out. I was with James Clark yesterday for an interview that I run, and he described it just as the way the season finished as a punch in the gut.
Yeah, and I was looking at it, like Bohs finished sixth like they did last year. I think they're 12 points better off. Like it is kind of mad that they didn't at least improve one position. But at the same time, they were in such a strong position after the first 2-3 months of the season. You're thinking, God, are they actually title contenders? And Afolabi hadn't actually hit his kind of really hot goal scoring streak at that point. But yeah, really tailed off, the away form being a massive problem. And yeah, it probably does. Europe probably does put a bit more pressure on them for this cup final. You'd have to say. Declan Devine was kind of taken away from that kind of thing. It was just like, no, it's about winning the cup, and it is. But at the same time, I don't know if it's the same amount of pressure that was on 2 years ago, because that in that final against Pats 2 years ago, there was a real sense that was the last chance for that Bohs team. Obviously, there was so much turnover. Obviously, Georgie Kelly was now, unfortunately, he was only half fit for the final. He was moving on. Keith Buckley was moving on, going traveling. There was a whole load of other players who were leaving. Obviously, Long stayed, but like finally, that much turnover finally got to him, and he was gone by about 2/3 of the way into the following season, possibly earlier. So there was a real sense that was the last chance for that Bohs team. It doesn't really feel like that this time around, although there is a sense of justifying the better work that happened this season and not letting it undermine, not letting that poor end undermine things. Obviously in the cup final that's coming up. And just to add exactly what I say, this is such a great week. Like from a media point of view, it's just like there's so many media days, there's so many people who are available for interview. Generally, I know probably wasn't this wasn't the case with Shelburne last season, but definitely this season, like players seem very open, clubs seem very open to doing things. And it's great. And it's just like there's a whole week of build up. There are kind of posters around town. You do get the sense that the FAI are making a much better job of pushing it. We'd be pretty optimistic. I think that we're going to get a record crowd. Is it over 41 that they have to break for the record crowd off the top of my head? I think they're at about 35. They're at about 35 yesterday evening. So yeah, like it's a showpiece occasion. I think it's been in the last few years, it's been given that kind of status befitting that, going back to maybe 2019, that Rovers final that they won, that felt like the first real of the kind of make the FAI Cup a showpiece occasion, and
that was like 33 or something.
Yeah, and obviously 2020 was behind closed doors, a massive crowd in 2021. And just looking back, like I mean, when wasn't Declan Devine in charge of Derry when they won the cup against Pats, there was only something like 12,000 in that match, like, which is crazy to think about. So the big crowd this game is partly down to the FAI pushing things. It's primarily down to the two clubs who've massively expanded their fan bases. And yeah, will it be a classic match? Probably not. Cup finals rarely are, but it's an occasion to really look forward to.
What are you looking at in terms of, from a coach's point of view, or your hat on, or if you're like opposition Douglas, what are you looking at in terms of the key matchups here?
Yeah, I think because I would expect both teams. I know Pat's flirted with three at the back in a couple of games. I think they used it recently against Rovers, but in reality, you would expect both teams to line out with a version of 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, whichever way you want to call it. Which means it really is individual battles are all over the field, or at most little kind of mini unit battles. I mean, the ones I'm looking at, I suppose, the ones that would most excite me is two Bohs wingers up against the two Pats fullbacks. I think that is going to have a massive bearing on the game. That's assuming Danny Grant keeps his position ahead of Ali Coote, which I do think he will do. So you're potentially looking at a scenario where you've got, Danny Grant, a player who was, before he went away, the hottest player in the league, who's kind of rediscovering his form a bit in the last couple of weeks, up against, I think, the roundly agreed Young Player of the Year in Curtis. I think that has the potential to be a brilliant battle. And down the other side, maybe not quite as much X factor, but still a fair one, and two probably more slightly proven assets in Dylan Connolly going at Anto Breslin. I just think they're, for me, if those two fullbacks can keep the Bohs lads quiet, or possibly even pin them back and get them going in the opposite direction, I think that will certainly be key to it, in my opinion. The midfield battle is fascinating. It's one that I fear for Bohs a little bit in, without the obvious loss of Keith Buckley, but maybe they can prove me wrong.